Olá, pessoal do canal No Caminho Eu Te Conto. Hoje nós temos um tema bastante técnico, bastante interessante e com um convidado de fora do Brasil. Eu convidei o Andy, meu amigo Andrew, para vir aqui falar conosco sobre procurement em viagens corporativas, ROI em procurement, então o retorno sobre o investimento feito pelas áreas de compras em relação a viagens e eventos corporativos, e também pedir para o Andy falar um pouquinho para nós como está o cenário de viagens, de regresso das viagens e do lazer nos Estados Unidos. Ele vai trazer para a gente um panorama. Ele preparou uma apresentação para compartilhar com vocês que me seguem aqui no canal, para vocês entenderem como está tanto as áreas de viagens quanto as áreas de compras, o pessoal de facilities, de recursos humanos, como que eles estão enxergando nos Estados Unidos a retomada das viagens corporativas, dos eventos e também das viagens de incentivo. O Andy é um executivo com uma vasta experiência no mercado de viagens, desde os Estados Unidos, mas também para o mundo todo. Ele é um executivo global que já atuou para algumas TMCs, respondendo por todos os processos de vendas e relacionamento com clientes em várias regiões do mundo. Então, eu vou trazer o Andy para conversar conosco. Hi, Andy. How are you?
I'm good, thank you. How about you?
I'm doing great. Thank you for accepting my invitation. It's a pleasure to have you here. I like it very much, your background. I wish I had a glass of wine here with me, but I have water, so I think it's the same. Oh, you too. So no problem. We are both with water.
Yes.
Uh,
But after
and-
I
but
will.
after, yeah. And I hope we have our physical interaction as well with wine.
Even better.
Yeah, it's better. So, Andy, if you can tell us a little bit more about your experience, about your background. You live in Florida, right? So you are based in the US. I told the people in Portuguese that you were here. You accepted my invitation to talk about the return on investments in procurement, the procurement for business travel, for corporate events, and also to talk a little bit of how the situation is evolving in the US in regards to business travel, leisure, and meetings and events. So thank you one more time for accepting. And if you could introduce yourself to us.
Thank you for now, and I thank you for inviting me to attend this particular broadcast. So I guess first I can give my background quickly, though, not to eat up all of the time. So I started with an airline when I was 21, TWA, and
Wow.
then was the head of their automation department, putting computers in travel agencies and corporate accounts. At 28, I opened up a travel agency, and
Wow.
by the time I was 30, we were global: New York, London, and Hong Kong. I worked for some large agencies. I worked for a bank as head of travel.
Mhm.
But for the last 20 years, I have been the founder and CEO of Partnership Travel Consulting. You know, we call it PTC. So
Yeah.
I've had a few decades in the industry. And in terms of COVID and impact on travel,
Mhm.
this year so far, I have flown on 35 flights. So I
Wow.
can relate firsthand to the experience. But in 2019, in the year for now, I flew 140 flights. So I'm
Wow.
definitely fewer, but more than most. Best example I can give you is in Florida. We have probably the highest number of COVID cases in the country as a state, but I'm not doing politics on today's broadcast. I can share with you that I flew up to New York City this weekend. No issues with the flight. The aircraft was very clean. Everybody wore their masks. They
Mhm.
reminded you to wear your mask unless you're eating or drinking, So people would make sure to have a big bottle so they can keep drinking and keep the mask off. They're going to do that.
Yeah.
For the hotel, at the entrance, it said, if you have had your vaccination, a mask is optional. If you did not have your vaccination, they want you to wear it. But you did not have to prove it. Now, I think the most interesting was I had dinner in New York City Saturday night with a colleague, and I brought my son. When we got to the restaurant, I had to show proof of vaccination and ID, photo ID. Only
Wow.
with those two evidence cards, my driver's license, my son's ID, and proof of vaccination, then we were allowed into the restaurant, New York City.
Oh my God.
But no one in the restaurant wore a mask except for the waiters and waitresses and hostesses. So New York City is back in terms of dining. Broadway opens up soon, but it's a requirement to show proof of vaccination in order to eat in a restaurant in New York.
How are you calling it, Andy? Is it green passport? I heard that in Europe, they are going to call it like a green passport.
No, I would call it a hard copy. I asked, did I have to show the original documents of vaccination or a photocopy? Now, I had both. They said I could show a photocopy. I asked if I didn't have the original and I didn't have a photocopy, but I had a picture of the card on my iPhone. Was that okay? And they said yes. So it's not digital. There's no system. And I think they're flexible as to, as long as you can show them a picture, a photocopy, or the original, there's nothing digital.
Wow. And probably you have different procedures per state, right? Florida is different from Nebraska.
Yes, I would say in Florida, where I am, we go out for dinner once a week, maybe twice a week. No proof of any kind. And the servers, the masks are optional for the servers, not required for the guests at all.
Oh my God.
Okay. Now, I was also, maybe I can give a bigger picture of the US. 2 months ago, we had a client meeting with several TMCs as part of their RFP, and the client insisted the meeting be in person. So our meeting was in San Francisco, in a hotel, in the rooftop bar, but during the day, the bar was not open to the public. So when you checked in, you had to show the hotel proof of vaccination, but that was it. So it does vary by state, because that was California. That was California.
Yeah, that's okay. So you flew over the country, 6 hours flight.
Yes.
Wow.
Yes, for a half-day meeting.
For a half-day meeting. Wow. And it's incredible how, like in the US or in Brazil, doesn't matter, but people want to see each other, even for a 3 or 4 hours meeting, but they make you to cross the country for that. Probably it makes more sense for them to close a business face to face.
Yes, well, we are all in the travel business. Travel is in our blood, it's in our nature, it's in our DNA. And certainly, as nice as this is, I would rather be in Brazil in person for lots of reasons, including caipirinhas.
Great. I think I never asked you, but have you come to Brazil anytime?
Yes, I think over the years, maybe 4 or 5 times.
4 or 5 times.
Mostly to Sao Paulo for business. When I worked for the bank, we had an office in Sao Paulo. I worked for Republic National Bank, so I got to visit our offices there. And I've also been a speaker at 1 or 2 conferences down there.
Oh, great. Great. So you have come a lot of times.
Yes, I would love to come back. I look forward to it.
Me too. I hope to host you here next year.
Okay.
For a joint webinar from Loureiro Consultores and Partnership Travel Consulting. We will be together.
Great.
Andy, and I don't want to bother you, but if you could talk a little bit about your article, I think it's the basis of your presentation, right? You were very kind preparing these slides, this deck, to share with the guys here in Brazil. And I really appreciate that. I think it's extremely important for them to see an outside vision from the US on how procurement can be important for business travel and what procurement can expect when they negotiate or when they invite a supplier for a negotiation, for a meeting, whatever, what they can expect from these guys, especially in this period that we are facing after the pandemic. After we are still in the pandemic, but after the most serious period. If you could share with us your content, I would really appreciate. And if you don't mind, if I can interrupt you with some questions that probably would be their questions for the people who will be watching us. This is not a live webinar. We are recording now to be broadcast later, okay?
Yes, of course. That will be my pleasure. So when I first wrote the article, I was thinking about the hundreds of hours that I would spend on the client side in consulting, like what you do as well, listening to the various TMC, Travel Management Company presentations. And a lot of them would say very much the same thing. Our focus is our people, our focus is our clients, we save you money, we do all these great things, but it was hard to distinguish one TMC from another.
Yes.
Especially if you did 4 TMC meetings in one day, 4 different TMCs presenting to the client, and all 4 of them say, we have a 95% client retention rate. Well, I don't have a PhD in mathematics, but you can't have the top 4 TMCs all have 95% retention. So with that, I started to think, if you're pitching to procurement, a procurement person wants to hear tangible, realistic numbers, something that they can model, ideally maybe put in Excel, and then compare one TMC to another. Traditionally, for now, most of the comparison in TMC bids is on the fees.
Yeah.
Typically, the TMC fee is 5% of travel spend. The big money is in airfare, hotel, ground transportation, meeting and events, etc. So I tried to come up with a different approach, but I like 3 letters, just like PTC. I like those 3 letters. But you have GBT, FCM, CTM, BCD, CWT. So I thought, what about ROI? Now, we all know the traditional definition is return on investment. And I've heard TMCs tell the client, well, you'll get a really good ROI with my agency. So I thought, what 3 words are easier to define that a procurement person can actually put the math behind it? And I came up with reduce, optimize, improve. See, those are verbs. Those are verbs. Those are action items. So I wrote an article in Business Travel Executive on the ROI for managed travel. And at your suggestion, I thought, I'm more than happy to do this webinar specifically for your colleagues in Brazil to talk about how, as a procurement person, you can be more involved in helping to reduce, optimize, and improve the program. And we will talk through each of those. And one last item of background is I had an attorney years ago tell me PSQ, price, service, quality, pick any two. So what he was saying is you cannot have all three. If you're going to focus on price and quality, you're going to miss on service. If you're focused on service, it's going to be more in price. So with that background, I came up with ROI, which is there are a lot of areas within a travel program where you can, at the same time, do all three, not one at the expense of the other. You can't have all three.
I agree. I totally agree. By the way, I have this slide. It's a graph, and it says the same: price, quality, and service. Usually, you have to choose two of them.
Right.
It's the same. And by the way, the concept that you are going to bring to us can be applied to any category in procurement, I would say. It's not only for business travel or meetings and events. For any negotiation, when you negotiate in a strategic way, when you have the strategic sourcing, you can apply what Andy is going to show to us.
I agree.
Great. Would you like to share the screen?
I thought you would say that, and I think I've hit the right button. You can tell me.
Let me see. No, not yet.
Share screen. How about now?
Oh, sorry. My mistake. It's here.
Good.
All yours.
Okay. Well, thank you. I appreciate the opportunity to have this discussion with you. I realize this is not a live audience, but I will talk as if it is, and then hopefully there will be some follow-up. So I just put up here a recap that this is you and I having this discussion on ROI. And sometimes in travel, they use a lot of acronyms, three-letter words.
True.
Now, that's okay for airport codes, EZE, MEX, ORD. But for travel, you want to be sure that you're speaking the same language. So if I see something that looks like it's in English, an acronym, I will slow it down, or you can guide me accordingly.
Yeah.
So with that, I gave a little bit of background on our company. I founded our company in 2001. So this year we celebrate 20 years. Most of our focus is with large multinational companies. And we have a number of very large clients. We have medium and small. Business Travel News produces a list every year of the top 100 companies. And I did a count for now, and 30 of them in that group have been clients of ours over the years. So we have a lot of good-sized clients. This was the background on the opening of our session today. It just shows that we have experienced consultants throughout the world, in APAC, in the Americas, from Canada down to Brazil, with yourself there, as well as in Europe, Middle East, Africa, including France, Germany, UK, and South Africa. So we are a global company for sure.
For sure.
And in terms of the areas that we, as a consulting firm, get involved in, which will tie to the discussion today: airline, hotel, payment, ground transportation, travel management, and M&E, what we call meetings and events. So no more commercial. So the areas that I'm going to be addressing are the typical 6 verticals in travel spend. Biggest spend is airline, then it's hotels, payment systems, ground transportation, which used to be rent-a-car, but maybe for the last 10 years, it includes Uber, Lyft, and companies like that. Travel agencies, which is now TMC, so I call it travel management. And another large area is M&E, meetings and events. It could be a meeting of 20 people, or it could be 5,000. So let me also add to your original question earlier. 2 weeks ago, I attended a conference. It was for Cvent. It was in person in Las Vegas, and there were 800 attendees in person at the meeting.
Wow.
We did have COVID protocols. You had to fill out a questionnaire about vaccination and tests and whatever. And only after you filled it out, you got a green check. You had to show your iPhone when you checked in at the desk. So even large meetings are still going on.
Yes, I agree. Andy, can I take the chance and ask you something? What's the concept of TMC in the US? Do you consider, for example, medium-size dedicated corporate travel agencies as TMCs, or only if they have, let's say, $100 million per year? Do you have this kind of consideration?
Yeah, that's a very good question. And you know me, I always give an honest answer. I don't have a script that I'm reading from.
Yeah.
And we didn't prepare the questions, which is even better. We said, let's just do it.
Yes.
So the background is going back maybe 15 years when travel agencies in the US, like everywhere else in the world, got commissions. They were travel agencies. Legally, agents of the airlines. That's where the agent comes in. When the airlines started to take away airline commissions for the travel agencies, they woke up one morning and said, I'm not a travel agency, I'm a travel management company. I work for you, the client. I don't work for the airline. Legally, they're still travel agencies, but they called themselves travel management companies. Too many words. So they made it shorter and just said, I'm a TMC. So it's generally accepted that the larger travel agencies that specialize in corporate travel are correct to call themselves TMCs, but there's probably 20,000 travel agencies in the US and maybe 100 that I would call TMC. So I couldn't say for now that it's 50 million or 100 million because the 5 biggest ones do billions of dollars in travel. So I would say the difference is if your travel agency specializes in corporate travel and you really do not do leisure, and most of your business is corporate, if you're doing millions of dollars a year in airline travel for your clients, and you charge those clients a fee, I'm okay if you want to call yourself a TMC.
Okay. Makes sense. Makes sense. Yeah, we have the same discussion here. I would say many agencies want to call themselves as TMCs. However, they are more leisure agencies that have a sale of corporate travel, or they have the friends of the owners are directors in a company and I service them for travel services, but they are not TMCs. In fact, they don't have reporting, they don't have quality assurance. What we ask in a contract with a TMC, they are not able to deliver. Integration with expense management tools, so they can classify themselves in this way. But we have a local association for TMCs. That doesn't mean that only those agencies are TMCs. We have others that are not in the association and they are TMCs. But I am aligned with you. And as you said, we didn't have any script for this webinar, which is great because we can collaborate more here. And I think that we have the same concepts across both countries.
Thank you. I agree. So one other key to tie this together, the important word is management, and I will tell you why. I do speak at various events or otherwise, and of course consulting. When somebody asks a question, how large is the business travel market? What I explain to them is there are two components of business travel. There's unmanaged travel and managed travel. Managed travel. So the difference, at least for my opinion, is a managed travel program. Excuse me.
No worries. Pessoal,
I hit the mute button for a second. A managed travel program has three aspects that make it managed. One, there's a written travel policy. Two, within the policy, it requires that you use the approved TMC. And three, it also requires using the company approved corporate card. So if employees in a company can book online with any supplier, airlines, hotels, car, can use their personal card to pay for the tickets, and can stay in any hotel they want and get a 4-star, 5-star hotel, that may be business travel, but it's unmanaged. So unmanaged travel does not use a TMC. So to tie this together, a TMC client base is managed travel, not just business travel.
Makes sense. Just one single note em português. Pessoal, para quem está nos assistindo, né, a gente está falando sobre as diferenças entre TMCs e agências de viagens corporativas que não são especializadas no assunto, porém têm clientes que viajam a trabalho, fazem gestão de algumas pequenas contas, mas não são agências especializadas. E o Andy mencionou o conceito de managed e unmanaged travel. Quer dizer, quando você tem gestão de viagens corporativas profissional, quando você administra, tem diretório de hotéis, tem regras, tem política, tem agência. E quando você não tem, você tem empresas que fazem viagens a trabalho, só que não existem regras, ou se existem regras, não tem acompanhamento, não tem um fornecedor que te ajuda a monitorar. Então, isso nos Estados Unidos se chama unmanaged travel, quer dizer, viagens corporativas não gerenciadas, tá certo? Sorry, Andy.
No, I appreciate that.
It's important to pick some things that you speak and highlight them.
Thank you. Okay, are you ready?
Yes.
All right. So, as I indicated in the opening remarks, ROI was always return on investment. For today, hopefully the audience will agree that reduce, optimize, and improve are another way of defining ROI. And I'm going to spend some time on each. So, the key is before you can go about developing an ROI for the travel program, you need to have collaboration. That includes IT, HR, finance, executives, travelers, and travel arrangers. So I wanted to be clear, you can't just write a memo and say, I'm now going to produce an ROI on the program based on what I heard on this session today. You really need to have team collaboration.
Yeah.
So, and I just pause between in case you need to, further explain. So, I tried to find 3 pictures that help explain. The first one, reduce. Reducing the travel spend by whatever percentage is. I put in 10%. That should be an easy number. It could be much higher, depending upon the baseline, the current program.
Exactly. Mm-hmm.
Optimize. You see, I'm focused here on the traveler. So optimizing the traveler productivity, which is if you can make the employee more productive, there's a definite ROI. Example, if I'm flying to that meeting in San Francisco that we talked about, and I have a choice of two airlines, and one I know the Wi-Fi is not so good, but the other I know every time the Wi-Fi works well, I'm going to want to fly the carrier that I can do work on the plane. It's that simple.
Mm-hmm.
And that goes for hotel and whatever. And then the last one is improve. So you can, in each of these cases, have a baseline for what your spend is to see if you've reduced it by 10%. You can certainly measure traveler productivity, which also includes, I didn't put it in this slide, employee retention.
Mm-hmm.
I've seen studies for now that show that the highest turnover of employee travelers is because of the travel program, how difficult it is. Mm-hmm. There are
Makes
studies
sense.
out. Again, I didn't want to spend too much time focusing away from ROI. And the last part is improving the experience. So that's easy enough to do. You start with a survey. What's their experience like now? Once you've made the changes we're going to talk about, do another survey. And you should see very measurable results for all three.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Okay. Similar to the prior slide where I talked about involving other departments, you have to recognize the needs of the traveler and their arranger, if it's an executive, duty of care for every booking. Data quality will determine the measurement of your ROI, and recognizing that you cannot write one memo and implement something globally. There are local, cultural, business, and traveler nuances, not only within a region, but as you know firsthand within LATAM, by country, by country. So it really is all of these considerations together.
True.
Okay, R, reduce. So I tried to come up with a list of areas that collectively can reduce that spend, and I left this at XX, because for some companies it might be 9%, others it might be 29%. So,
True.
case in point, a lot of internal meetings in 2022 and beyond will go from flying to collaborate in person at the office to virtual.
Mm-hmm.
One way to track your spend and progress is with some automation. So you can have, as an example, some of these I will give detail, others I'm just going to skip. But if the employee on the online booking tool was shown, this is our preferred hotel, these are preferred airlines, but does not book them, there is technology that can track. We know what we showed them, we can see what they booked, and if they're not on policy, we can run reports.
Yeah.
Excuse me. Number 3 is the biggest opportunity. Unattached hotels. In the States, they also call it leakage for hotels.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
To me, leakage in a hotel is if in your room is below the swimming pool. That's leakage. Okay?
That makes sense.
So an unattached hotel is I book a business trip to Sao Paulo. I fly on the 1st of September. I come back on the 5th, but I didn't book my hotel through the TMC or through the OBT.
Mm-hmm.
So that's considered an unattached hotel, which is the booking has no hotel.
Yeah.
That typically means the employee is not booking the preferred hotel, or if they book the preferred hotel, maybe not the discounted rate.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. Depending upon the country, rail is a great alternative to flying. Another big opportunity is airline inventory. Years back, I worked for an airline, and we would offer, let's say, 40% discount in business class, but you had to book it in the letter Z like in Zulu. You could never find Zulu availability on a Friday or a Sunday.
Yeah.
So you want to audit the airline of inventory compared to your contract. Hotel rates. Hotel rates. You may have negotiated great hotel rates for the year, but it doesn't mean that they're always being available in the GDS. The GDS is the travel agency or TMC computer system. So you can audit specific dates for the hotels in program to see if those rates are still being shown.
Yeah.
Another big opportunity is the TMC data. The TMC reporting is great for reporting what was booked. But it is the credit card system, the corporate card, and the expense system that show what the employee actually did. And for now, I may have you translate this, because what I talk about is TMC data is intent. Credit card data is spent. But the expense report system is what was actually reimbursed to the employee. Three different data points.
Agree. O que o Andy está falando é que aqui no número 8, né, comparar as reservas realizadas com os itens que foram pedidos reembolso. Porque os relatórios das TMCs e das agências são a intenção. Então, eu tenho a intenção de pagar R$200 numa reserva de hotel, R$100 numa reserva de carro. O que eu tenho no relatório do cartão de crédito do funcionário, ou no recibo que ele apresenta, ou numa nota fiscal, o que eu tenho ali é o que provavelmente, é o que eu vou pagar, né? Provavelmente não, é o que eu devo pagar. Então, eu tenho a intenção, eu tenho o que eu devo pagar, e dentro da ferramenta de expense, eu de fato tenho o que foi pago, o que saiu do caixa, o que é contábil, é aquilo que vai contar para o resultado da empresa. Então, a gestão de viagens, como o Andy está falando, ela é muito complexa também por isso, porque a gente trabalha com 3 pontos de vista para fazer a gestão. A intenção, o booking, a prestação de contas, que é o que em teoria é devido, e o o pagamento, né? O pós-pagamento, que é olhar se de fato aquilo que está sendo reembolsado é correto, é justo e está de acordo com o devido. Done.
Obrigado.
De nada. And one thing, Andy, I was going to mention about point 1, convert some internal meetings to virtual. It's can be reduced, of course, financially speaking, but also our impact on the environment, right? I was talking with my cousin last week, and she was telling me that her company, she works for a gaming company here in Brazil. It's a French one. And they have asked the employees to not come back to travel because of their environmental, how can I say, campaign. Campaign could be the word. But because they are being charged by the European Union to not impact the environment so much. So we could also say here that for point 1, it's not only a reduction in the finance of the company, in the spend, but also in the environmental impact that everyone has.
Well, I agree. When I was putting together the deck, I probably had 40 different areas, but wanted to reduce it to just 10 of each. But reducing carbon impact would be at the very top.
Yeah.
Okay, and there's cost. And I just want to mention that number 9, identifying upgrades that increase costs, goes back to number 8, which is I booked an intermediate car, and I booked a standard room at the hotel, So I booked within policy. When I get to the car counter, I say, give me that Mercedes over there. I get to the hotel, and the clerk says, would you like to upgrade to the concierge floor? Oh, sure, absolutely. Go ahead and upgrade me. So these all do tie together. And I'm just going to summarize with number 10, measure advanced bookings. Typically, the further in advance you book, the lower the cost, whether that's for hotel rate or for air.
True.
Okay, we're now going to do optimize. Similar to the first set, if you have 400 hotels in your program, and I've seen that, if you do the analysis, you may have 400 hotels in the program, but in terms of the credit card data and expense data, there may be 600 hotels being used. So this is easy for a procurement person to optimize the number of suppliers. That would be for hotel and airline. I saw one presentation from a client, and it was to management, and it said, we have 95% compliance to our preferred airlines.
Wow.
Then when I looked at the preferred airline list, American, United, Delta, BA, KLM, Singapore, they had every airline as preferred. Okay, so the headline was 95% compliance. The reality is they had every airline. Certainly, I've seen instances where a global company had 60 different TMCs around the world. That means you're paying different prices. It means you're paying retail, and it's very difficult to track your traveler if there's an emergency.
I can't even imagine managing 60 TMCs.
Yeah, no, we did that project.
Oh my God.
So OBT is an online booking tool like Concur, Get There, or Citric. So I bring this up, and maybe another day we can do a different session, but unless you spend the time to audit that the OBT is showing your preferred airlines, is showing your preferred hotels, and the pricing, you're going to be losing a lot of money. And I saw one example, I'll give you an easy one, for a client that pulled up availability from, let's say, New York to Switzerland. And on the OBT display were 4 different carriers, all with connections. But we knew that there was an airline that flew nonstop. The problem was the setting. The setting was from, let's say, New York to, let's say it's Geneva, but the input time was 9 a.m. and the search parameter, the search window, was 4 hours. So the tool looked from 5 in the morning until 1 in the afternoon. It didn't show the nonstop because the nonstop left at 6 o'clock in the evening. So by not configuring the OBT correctly, employees were not shown that there's one nonstop.
I totally agree.
Okay.
And this is a very expert function, right? So it's important for the companies, the business, to understand what a good travel manager should do.
Right, because we cannot expect the company to configure the tool.
Exactly.
You either rely on the TMC to audit it, or you bring in an outside expert. All right, 5 I'm going to skip because I said it before. 6, I'm not showing a slide here, but anytime you book on Amazon, you see all these great pictures of what you're thinking of, and it knows what you've bought before. There is the ability in the OBT that if I pull up, I want to book a trip from, let's say, Miami to Sao Paulo, that the company preferred hotel is on the first screen. So statistically, 90% of travelers book the first screen, and 90% of them book the first row. So I say digitally market the same way Amazon markets things, or the same way in the supermarket, the cereal companies pay more money to be the shelf that's at eye level, not to be on the bottom.
Of course.
The same can be for city pairs for airlines. In terms of your supplier agreements, how do you know if the TMC fees you're paying in Spain or in Australia or Singapore are the right rates unless you benchmark them for the TMC fees?
True.
All right, another acronym. MSA is Master Service Agreement. It's the contract with the TMC.
Just one Portuguese note. MSA, pessoal, é um tipo de acordo que pode ser regional ou global, mas é, por exemplo, um acordo, o contrato global entre uma agência e um cliente. São colocadas todas as condições legais, quem responde pelo contrato, prazo, preço, definição de serviços, quem vai prestar, como, onde, quando. E aí, para cada país, é feito uma folha, 2 folhas, só complementando o que não foi previsto no contrato global. Porque imagina se o contrato global tivesse todas as peculiaridades de todos os países. Ia ser um documento de 1000 páginas. Então, faça um contrato global entre as duas partes, com o que se aplica para todos os países, o que é universal. E aí, em cada país, são feitos contratos locais atrelados a este global com as peculiaridades daquele país. Horário de atendimento, língua que vai ser falada no atendimento, quantos consultores e por aí vai. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, and the last item is if you have contracts for these suppliers, and you do for airline, hotel, car, and in the case of a TMC, besides the master service agreement number 9, there's a service level agreement. So there's no value in having a contract with performance requirements unless you measure them. Okay, I'm going to move over to improve. So for now, if this was a live session and we said to the audience, send us any of the areas in travel that you think can be improved, we would get a lot. We know that. That. So I try to come up with a credible list that ties to the ability to measure as well. So the other day when I was checking in for my flight, I had to click 14 times to check in.
14?
14 clicks to get my boarding pass. So with the online booking tool, there was one company for their major city pair. They reduced the number of clicks to book a trip to 3 clicks. It can be done.
It can be done.
It can be done. Very few travelers look at the itinerary when they get it. They know their flights, their hotel. They don't read all the details. So if you want to make it more productive for the traveler, sit down with them. Find out what they do look at, what they don't look at, and then that which is important, make it easier to see. It should not look like fine print on a contract.
Yeah, I agree.
Mobile messaging. I will just give one example. Next month, I'm flying to London for a meeting. When I land in London, I will get a message that says the best way to get from the airport, Heathrow, into London town is to take the Heathrow Express train. So you can have messaging that matches the itinerary based on the date and time.
Yeah.
Okay. Equally so, especially when the winter comes, right? It's your winter, it's my summer. My winter, it's coming around the corner, is the ability to advise the traveler the minute there's a delay. All right, now she's on her phone because she's probably paying for Wi-Fi. But if I'm going to miss my connection, send me a message that tells me, Andy, you're going to miss your connection, but I've rebooked you on a different flight and it's gate number 62.
Yeah.
Okay.
I agree.
Do training on the OBT. You can create a video on how to use it. You can't just assume employees know how to use it.
Yeah.
Also, I used to hate when I worked for the company, for the bank, to do expense reports. So I would let them pile up for 3 months. But we do have the ability to automate portions of a travel record directly from either the GDS or the OBT to the expense report system, so I don't have to type everything in, at least the air and the hotel.
Mm-hmm.
New hires, a new employee going to a destination for the first time, where are they going to look to know what's the best way to get from Sao Paulo Airport to the Intercontinental Hotel, or for London to take a train? So travel tips. More and more employees are using chat, not even an OBT, an online tool. They're using chat. Look at improving that experience. Surveys are a very important way to know how to improve it. Find out what they're not happy with.
Yeah.
Okay, and then last but not least, I use several apps because of the travel I do, but you may not. Other people on this video may not. So by company, the travel manager can say, these are the 5 most valuable travel apps that we recommend, and we have already approved them because IT has vetted them. So you can see this was easy to come up with 10 ways to improve.
That's great. And the point, just one, if you can, yeah, thank you. The point 4, I have passed through 2 or 3 very stressful situations just because I had a disruption. Actually, not with the airplanes, but with the trains. One in New York, I was moving from Central Station, I don't remember, to Newark.
Yeah, Penn Station to Newark, yep.
And the train was under maintenance. In that day, was a Saturday. And we had to drop off in the middle of the way and take some buses. And that was a mess, nobody there to help us. And I had a very stressful situation.
Right.
But I didn't get any message from anyone, at least to prepare my spirit, there is no other way. You're gonna have to face this. But I was taken completely by surprise, and that's not good for a traveler, because going to an airport for me is one of the most stressful things.
Same.
So if you can mitigate that for your travelers, I think it's one of the most important roles for travel professionals, not only travel managers.
Agree. And that's why any of the stress or disruptions or excessive time spent researching or booking that you can do for the employee, the more productive they are on revenue producing time. It's that simple.
Exactly.
So I tie this together with just, you have to take a systematic approach, talk with your constituents, your employees, and your suppliers. You develop a plan and then evaluate, how are we doing? Where else can we make improvements? It really does tie together. So with that, this is a copy, I don't expect anyone to read it on the screen, of that article I wrote on ROI in Business Travel Executive, and I know you will share the hyperlink, with our audience.
Yeah.
And with that, I think I'm open for questions, but that's not possible. So I give this back to you, and I thank you again for this opportunity for now.
No, Andy, my pleasure. Although there are not questions now, I'm sure that we are going to record other webinars and make some live ones so people can ask you directly. I think they will be very happy to be in touch with you as well. And that I really appreciate it. And that's why I invited you to be here with me. I liked the way that you proposed the concept of ROI. We are so used to return on investment that you made a great thing with these letters: reduce, optimize, and improve. I liked the 3 slides, but the most that I liked was the last one, because I'm passionate person about traveler experience. I think there are so much to do to improve their lives. In the US, you are the most mature market. So for my market, for Brazil, for Latin America, even in Europe, I used it to be in global programs before. I know they have a lot to do yet with hotels, with airlines, and travelers. They suffer a lot from the pre-booking when they have to get approvals, when they have to organize a schedule. During the trip, if they have a problem, they usually have to solve by themselves this problem. They sometimes have support from the travel agency or from the airline, but they depend on their luck. They can't always count with a structured system of support. And after the trip, most of the companies still don't have a mature expense management system. So they spend a lot of time collecting receipts and uploading them one by one and having to check the spend, the differences between the receipts and the credit card invoices. So I think the traveler's life is not easy.
No, I agree. And we both know that being travelers ourselves.
Exactly. We bring this experience from our own lives, right? I totally agree. And Andy, just one question before we close. How much I read last week that the airlines in the US are already with the pre-pandemic levels of passengers. But I guess that these passengers are more leisure than business travel. And before, you probably had a similar number, right? Leisure and business travel. Do you have an idea of how much business travel is representing today? It should be like 30%.
That's the number I have in my head. Yes, and I can share with you that quite a number of companies here in the U.S. still have travel policy restrictions that unless it is what they call mission critical or urgent, you cannot go. You cannot go. So
Okay.
where the airlines are seeing their passenger numbers coming back to pre-COVID, that doesn't mean they're profitable numbers because leisure is not as profitable as business. So I would think that probably 2/3 of that business is in fact leisure because
Okay.
so many companies have just not allowed any travel. In some cases, it's until September. In other cases, I've seen it until the end of the year, unless it's urgent. Urgent would be if your company installs and repairs medical devices and an
Oh yeah.
MRI machine needs repair, you're going to send somebody out there. But you're not going to get salespeople on the road. Here's why. If a salesperson wants to go meet with a prospect, chances are the company of the prospect is not letting employees back in the building. So what are you going to do? Meet them in a hotel near their house? It just doesn't work. So I think most of the business for the airlines that's come back in terms of passengers is leisure compared to business,
Leisure.
for sure.
And not events as well, corporate events.
Other than the one in Las Vegas, no, not much in the way of events at all. No.
Wow. Yeah, it's a huge transformation.
Oh, yes, sir.
Indeed. And would you like just to tell the guys that PTC actually is going to host an event, right, in December?
Yeah, we're hosting a strategic sourcing summit in New York City on December 14th.
14. Okay.
December 14th. Originally, it was in May, then it was September. Now we've moved it to December.
E pessoal, isso também é um reflexo, né, de embora os Estados Unidos tenham avançado muito bem, né, na vacinação no início do ano, de janeiro a maio, mas eles chegaram agora num ponto de 52% da população vacinada, e isso está atrapalhando muito a retomada econômica do país, o turismo, as viagens corporativas, os eventos, porque os empresários muitas vezes não se sentem confortáveis em enviar seus funcionários para viajar, os escritórios fechados, não tem nem como mandar a pessoa ir fazer uma reunião se o escritório do cliente ou o escritório daquela empresa está fechado, vamos dizer em Seattle, em Las Vegas, Minnesota, em Minneapolis, que fica em Minnesota. Então, não faz sentido mandar uma pessoa viajar lá e vai fazer reunião no Starbucks ou vai fazer reunião no hotel, fica estranho, né? Então, isso também está atrapalhando a retomada. I was telling the guys that you in the US came to a roof, right? Something like 53% of the people have taken the 2 shots, but you are not being able to go ahead because there are many people that are not willing to take the vaccine. So it's definitely pushing back the recovery, right?
Yes, and it is unfortunate. And the statistics that I've seen on all of the news networks for now is of the patients in hospitals with COVID, either very sick or who have died in the hospital, 95% did not have a vaccination.
Yeah, the same here.
So hopefully more and more people will realize it's necessary to do. It should, of course, it has to be optional as a culture. But I wear a seatbelt when in my car. When I'm on a motorcycle, I wear a helmet. Based on everything I heard, I got my vaccinations as soon as I could.
Of course. It's for you, for your family, and for your friends, and for people that you don't know, because otherwise we will never kill this virus.
Agreed.
Andy, we have talked for 1 hour.
Wow.
Yes, it's been great. I will close here the interview, but if you can stay just 1 more minute.
Sure.
I really appreciate your time. Thank you one more time. And if you guys can follow the PTC webpage, I had put here. It's partnershiptc.com. Okay? If you want to visit the website, I'm gladly part of this great team that is present around the world, and it's been a fantastic experience to exchange my business life and also to have this new friend here in the screen with me. Thank you very much, Andy. Let me close the interview.